It is real. It's on the drawing board. Money is there, at least beginning funding, not all of it, but money is there. And I think we can all be very proud. It really came out of citizen activism. It came out of people like all of you sitting in this room. So that's how we're going to start out with an overview of exactly where we are and what the planning is. And we have sitting here from the Port Authority two good friends, two people who have been really involved with this since the beginning. First, Diane Eiler, who is the director of tunnels, bridges, and terminals. Not too many women can have a title like that out there. So we're particularly proud of Diane and the work that she is doing here on the bus terminal. And then, what someone I call the Port Authority's new master builder, Steve Flake, who is the engineer in charge of all of this, who has been involved with the planning from the very beginning and whose visionary ideas have helped shape it. So with that, we're going to spend a little time just bringing you all up to date so that you can look forward to a new bus terminal. It is the busiest bus terminal in the world, in the world. 240,000 people go in and out of there day in and day out. And before it started in this room, the words bus terminal had never even been in the Port Authority's capital plan. So it was out of this kind of civic input that we've gotten this far. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Diane first, okay, to bring you up to date. We'll spend about 15 or 20 minutes on all of this and then move to the many brave people from New Jersey Transit who actually came out here, including, please wave, the new customer advocate who's taken a lot of heat on Twitter and Facebook, including from me. But he took the bus out here. He took the 167 from Manhattan to get here, Stuart Mayer, who is the new customer advocate from New Jersey Transit, and we'll introduce all of you when we get to that point. So Diane, it's all yours.
I might try to walk around, and I'm short for the whole of it. So first, thank you, Senator Weinberg, for that introduction. And I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. It's such a beautiful night, and the fact that you came here today to get this update and express your opinion. We know you didn't do that. You're taking your time out to share with us your thoughts, and we do appreciate that. I also, I'm happy to be here today with my colleague, Steve Flake, with my colleagues from New Jersey Transit. I also want to introduce the current general manager of Port Authority Bus Terminal, Mark Schaff. So Mark took over the Port Authority Bus Terminal when I left. I was the general manager of the Port Authority Bus Terminal before becoming the director of tunnel business and terminals. So, but I do spend a lot of time at the bus terminal, to maybe Mark's chagrin, or we take pictures of things that I'd like to see improved, or congratulating them on things that have happened. So it's all good, right? So, and I was also here in 2014 at the invitation of Senator Weinberg back in June of 2014 at that first meeting. It was I would say we had twice as many people. It was a very informative session. Both myself and Mike Kilcoyne, we were both there. Mike was the VP of bus operations. Dennis Martin was there as well that day. And we did a lot of listening. And from that, Port Authority developed what was called, we named a quality of commute program. And the focus of the program was really out of what Loretta thought, was out of what we had heard that night. So there were three things that we focused on. We focused on trip reliability, we focused on the building and the building system improvements, and then we focused on customer communication. So there was a lot that was born out of that. We put together a program that summer between June and September. And the initial program was a $90 million investment program. We brought it to the board, Port Authority's board, got it approved. And I'll talk a little bit about work that was accomplished since. But one of the things to note is that the program we think was fairly successful. I'd like to get your input on that when we have the Q&A. And since then, we were able to expand it and go back and got another $20 million for the improvements. So that speaks to what the Port Authority believe was the impacts of the program. To set the stage a little bit, anybody who knows me knows I'm kind of an optimist. But even the optimist in Diane has to say there are no quick fixes when it comes to Port Authority bus terminal. The terminal presently operates beyond capacity. Beyond capacity in terms of the bus operations. I don't have any more gates. I have no more capacity to fit any more sausage into the sausage casing. For pedestrians, in terms of movements throughout the building, in terms of queuing space, it's just operating beyond capacity every day. The building structure and the systems are nearing the end of their useful life. And it's reliant, it's part of the system, it's part of the network. It relies on a system of roads that are heavily congested. So it's quite a challenge. It's not an excuse, it just is what it is. But it's operating beyond capacity and its building structure is the reason that we are now planning for its replacement. And Steve will get into the details of where the Port Authority is in that replacement in a few minutes. So, promised upgrades. This talks about what's going to happen in 19, but I'll talk about some of the things that we did so far and where we accomplished on the trip reliability. So the first thing we focused on, we made a lot of operational changes. I'm an engineer and kind of a geek. I kind of spared some of the detail, but one of the first big things we did was we got working with all of the carriers. New Jersey Transit was probably our biggest partner. We focused on the delivery of buses being just in time delivery of buses. There's a lot that went into that, but that was really the first series of changes that involved operations at the Lincoln Tunnel, how we handle the buses inside the terminal, but also how the carriers schedule the buses. Anybody who drives a bus knows what we did the second year. It was massive gate changes. It was a reallocation of how we allocated the gates. And what we were trying to do was make it easier for the carriers to reassign gates on the fly when they came in. And what that did was it just made it easier for them to buy where the garages that the buses were going to head to at the end of the night, made them, well, I should really let Mike explain what it did, but it enabled them to improve their on-time performance. That was the end result. We did things like gate sharing. So we've got intercity carriers like Greyhound who weren't getting a lot of turns per gate in the PMP. And we worked with them to allow New Jersey Transit to operate off of the gates during the PMP, which also helped their time performance. So I won't bore you with any more.
What's PMP?
I'm sorry, PMP, afternoon rush hour. PM, peak period, 4 to 7 p.m. All right, so in the morning, now I know there's been a lot of focus, and Senator Weinberg took us to task on this on delineators in the morning, especially when we would lose those plastic tubes that separate the contraflow operation of buses during the morning rush hour. So during the winter, Lincoln Tunnel maintenance staff actually jury-rigged, right? Their own version, they tested various versions of delineators. They made them themselves. And they came up with a prototype finally, after several attempts, of something that worked better. So we went from losing, like, we call them wipeouts. If I was missing more than 3 of those plastic tubes in a row, we couldn't operate the express bus lane safely. So we would have to actually stop the XPL and replace them. So we went from an average of, say, 1 a day to less than 1 a month. And then we went to all the manufacturers of delineators, and we asked them to try to partner with us to come up with a better system. And one of the manufacturers, it happened to be Short Type, which is the one that had the videos where they were driving over, they agreed to work with us. And we prototyped something with Short Type. We drilled sleeves in between the delineators we had and installed a version that you would stick in and twist tie, again, around the turn, which is where we were having the problem. So that seemed to work. We put them in between and they held up. We went to our traffic engineers to make sure there was nothing that they saw that was a problem, and they didn't have any objections. So we're in the process right now. We just ordered them and we're having them manufactured, and we expect to have them installed around that curve as soon as humanly possible. So again, that came out of listening to the customers. Nobody needed to tell us. We actually were working on this, but Short Type was something that was brought to our attention, and it was something that we were able to bring to fruition. Building improvements, and I'd love to hear feedback on if we got it right, but we focused on, and I will have time for questions, so I know people don't have questions, but we focused on, we did all of the restrooms in the entire building, right down to the studs. All public restrooms replaced. Ceiling and lighting improvements, our focus has been on the south wing because it was the oldest, lower level, main, second floor, all the ceiling and lighting was being replaced. All the 8th Avenue doors, that was a major complaint, people felt unsafe. They're supposed to be lighter, easier to push now. All 8th Avenue doors replaced. Vertical circulation, that building, if you can't use those escalators, and I know the 200 gates, I've got those escalators that are problem every night. It's a safety concern that they get shut off. But the unloading platform escalators, when you rehab them, they had been plagued with leaks on them, which made them unreliable. We focus on those because the unloading platforms are critically important. We have another phase that's focusing on other escalators. But we have later this summer, we'll be unveiling. That's what those 2 photos are. We actually added an escalator from main level in the south wing to the lower level because we're expecting to add some additional movements down there. We've added access to an elevator lobby that was already on the south level, so we do have a mobility issue now. It doesn't fix the problem, but we provided access to an elevator bank that was already there, so people can come in now and catch an elevator that was there because they didn't have access. And by I want to say the end of July, we're going to be opening up a brand new set of stairs from Maine that will go down to the subway level in the south wing, because we saw the queuing that was happening there every day. And we believe that will be impactful, that people will be able to use that, and that will help them in the morning and the afternoon rush. Anybody that's in the south wing that wants to get to the subway. So the last area in customer communication was Commuter chats. We started right after the 2014, started quarterly meeting with customers. We do it 4 times a year. We invite all of the carriers, and we try to announce it and let customers come and talk to management. I try to get there myself, like the Lincoln Tunnel and Bus Tunnel management are there present. New Jersey Transit's always present, along with several other carriers. We tried to be more specific with the e-alerts. If anybody wants to sign up for e-alerts, we'll have the information available for you. Also, public address system. So me, taking a bus, I want to know, is the problem on Route 3? Is it on Turnpike North, Turnpike South? When I get my bus, am I going to have a good trip home, or is it going to be bad? Is the problem with the bus coming in or going home? So we're trying to be more specific about the information so people can better plan. We also, last year, unveiled a My Terminal app. So, the 40,000 people have downloaded the My Terminal app. It's pretty good. We're looking for ideas if anybody has room for improvement, everything does. But that speaks a little bit about the app. It's 1 year out there, and 40,000 people have turned it down. And then, this is brand new. We just started a new advisory council. We had, I think, Close to 150 people applied. The first meeting of this new advisory council is going to be, I believe, sometime later this summer. But these are the type of things we're trying to get regular input from those people who use it. In addition to sessions like this, we're looking for opportunities to get feedback and do the best job that we can. So with that, there's going to be time for Q&A, but I want to leave time for Steve to talk about the exciting news for the terminal. So Steve. It's okay if you give me compliments, Steve.
You're the best. Hello, everyone. I want to spend a few minutes tonight to just share the exciting news we have going on. And Diane is great, and people don't realize each and every day she fights and rises to the challenge with her staff to make that facility as best as she possibly can, and is every day succeeding. However, in addition to her, Senator Weinberg has been truly an advocate and has truly bred life into this project. And as a result, we are now off and running. What I want to share with you is some of the things that are underway. In May 23rd of this year, we released a document which is called the Port Authority Planning Level Scoping Document. What is that? Accomplished to date, puts it in a concise form, and points out what is the purpose and need, what is the purpose of the project, what is the need of the project, what are the challenges of the project, what have we already looked at, and what do we plan to look at. So really, in a relatively concise form, it makes all the information available to you. So then you could go to our website, which has been activated, and get a copy of that. We're presently in a 120-day comment period, which is very robust. Usually they go 30, 60. We felt this project was that important that we wanted to make sure that you had tremendous public input. And we've really gone well above and beyond the standards in this type of effort, because we truly believe at the end of the day, if you help us, we will succeed and provide a facility we'll all be very proud of. We have public meetings scheduled in both in New York and New Jersey, both in July 10th and September. We've done something different for the Port Authority, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of the first ones. We have virtual public meetings, so you can go online and look at a meeting, which is basically sharing the same information that you would be able to acquire at the public meetings if you can't make it. So you actually can keep up to speed. You will provide us with comments. Provide us with as many comments as you possibly can, because we need to respond to what your needs are. We can't read your minds. We want a facility that truly addresses your needs. We will then look at those, we'll discuss them, we'll go back with you, share our thoughts about them, and then finally publish a final document for your review as well. And that will kick off then the handoff, the seamless handoff to the federal government, namely the FTA, who will provide a NEPA environmental process which will go over the next period, which will address the formal process. But we want to get a little bit of a head start. We want to sit with you. You are our partners, you are our family, you are our users, and we want to make sure we truly get a grasp of what your needs are. Some of the public meetings we've identified in New Jersey on July 10th. We're locating in the Clinton Inn Hotel and Event Center at 145 Dean Drive in Tenafly. And we're going to have an open house at 3:30 like we had here. Show up a little early, we can meet each other, we can talk offline, we can get a good sense of what we're about, who the right person to ask questions are. There'll be a room full of our people, specialists, generalists, project people, a good cross-section of people from our group to help answer any questions you may have. In addition to that, at 4:30, there'll be a formal session, and that'll be like a virtual public meeting I talked about. There were people who talked to slides, PowerPoints, boards. They'll give you a sense of what we're thinking with the project. We really, again, I can't say it enough, we really want your comments and your feedback. At 6 o'clock, there'll be a second session. For those of you who come home a little later, that'll be available as well. And then we look to do something in September, thinking early to mid-September, to do it again. And that doesn't mean that's the end of it. If we need more, and we get a sense from the Senator that we need more, we would be happy to do more. Because again, without you, we can't succeed. So just some logistics. They're available on our website as shown here, pabtreplacement.com. If you sign up on the website, you'll get constant updates. And then also available at the Bus Terminal Replacement Center, which is located, you know the center, the bus terminal was by Frame Bowling Alley off of 9th Avenue. You go through the revolving doors, you go immediately to your right, and you go in there, there'll be either a hard copy or a flash drive. In fact, tonight, we have available for you some copies and some flash drives if you'd like. And if we run out, we're happy to get your name and number, we'll mail them to you if that works for you. So the replacement center will be open, the hours are shown, and we're looking forward to a very exciting process. And I've been on a number of projects in my life. I'm gifted to the last 18 years of my life rebuilding World Trade Center. And I said, what's next? And I was given the opportunity to work very closely with my great colleagues, Diane and her team and my team, to do something special like this. And this project is really transformational. It's transformational for the community in the area that will be working. And they are very supportive of the project. But equally as important to the end users, and namely you. We want that experience to be extremely positive, extremely rewarding, and help start your day and end your day in the right way. Thank you.
Excuse me, do you give any timelines?
Yes, this effort, approximately 120 days. Let's go back here. So, approximately 120 days, so we're looking at the end of September to close out the comment period. Then we'll take some time, I'll say a couple of months, to make sure we respond, and we'll be reaching out to you if necessary to clarify your comments. So we're looking to wrap this up by the end of the year and then pass it off to the SBA, who's ready and willing and able. They're excited about being part of this. This is really a game changer for all of us as professionals. Even the federal government is very excited about it. Yes.
Do you have any questions?
Any
More
questions?
about the bus terminal?
I couldn't understand if there is already a plan to replace it in a proposed location, or is it this existing location, and the comments are basically going to make on the type of facilities that are needed. I'm trying to understand where we are from that.
Okay, that's an excellent question. So let me clarify. The first thing, the answer to the first question is that we are looking at a number of alternatives. We started with almost over a dozen. And we looked at that, and we had two criteria. You'll see in the book, and I'll give you some detail. There were two criteria. One, which was very important, was operationally viable. It had to reach a certain capacity and do certain things. And we went through that very thoroughly with our own people, the operations people, our in-house experts, as well as supported by other experts. The second thing was not taking private profit. So those two criteria brought us down to three. Two of which are in the Javits area, and the third one is build in place. Those three will be evaluated, and then we'll be down to one. Now, the second question you asked, are your comments first should be focused on your preference relative to the two, and you'll see the analysis of what each provides factually. The second question, which is very equally as thoughtful, whichever one we end up selecting, what do we need to make sure we do to make your experience even better? So it's two levels to that question. Thank you.
Because it was mentioned that you're at over 100% capacity, that means you're building a larger port-out bus terminal with more places for more buses.
As my partner would say, gates are king. Yes. So we
And because bus technology is in
a plug.
state of change,
Yes. Yes.
there's likely to be more electric buses.
Yes.
It'll be less practical in cleaning up the emissions within the building. Final thing is happening.
Okay. Well, that's an excellent question because some people would shy away from that challenge, but we're embracing it. So we have to predict the future. We have to design for today. We already know New Jersey Transit is looking at hybrid vehicles, so that's one level. But 10, 20 years from now, they'll be electric. And we're starting to look at that. And there'll be potentially at some point autonomous vehicles. So all that, I call it do not preclude. So we have to design for today, be ready for tomorrow, and be ready for the future. And that's the challenge we have as engineers and builders.
What's the earliest projected date this building will be ready?
Well, we're not ready to tell you that yet. That's what this, once we get a selected alternative and we can drill down on the means and methods and the construction, then we'll be able to better plan on it. And that'll evolve over time. Thank you, sir.
Quick question. Can folks hear me like this?
Oh, yeah. You're welcome.
My question is about funding. Senator, you brought this up at the start, that like, this is almost all the way funded, but not
So I said that it is, there is funding.
Yeah. Where is that money coming from, I'm curious, because, and like, the sources of that, and also, is there like, potential to need to get more money, you know, like, what's the money situation
Okay,
here?
let me summarize.
Sounds expensive.
It is expensive. So I call it sources and uses, and it's used on many jobs. So you have to balance those two. So what we're embarking on right now, and it's not small change. The Port Authority has put up, and the federal government is very pleased with this, $3 billion right now. Okay, we have it in our pocket.
Billion with a B.
With a bit, not million, billion.
Capital billion.
Capital billion. That, I will say honestly, that'll take me a while to spend. Okay, so we have to go through this process, which is less cost driven, and then ultimately we get into where we start designing and ultimately construction. That's when you start spending a lot more money. So we have some time. While that's going on, we're looking at other funding sources. While that's going on, as I'm bringing up the funding sources, we're looking to be smarter and smarter about the design and tighter and reduce the costs. So we're looking at different means and methods to reduce the cost. So it's hopefully the goal is over the next several years is to converge on the two and do it at a reasonable cost as well as faster.
My fares aren't going to go up to pay for this thing. It's a half joke.
There's been no discussion about that at all.
Okay, now I'm not joking.
No,
But like really?
I'm telling you an honest question, that we have not discussed that at all as far as, right now, it's based on Port Authority, bonding capacity, and that's the point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as you mentioned before, you know, we're above capacity, you know, the capacity is only going to have to go up. Has there been any discussion of having two functional bus terminals? Keeping the one and then having the one at the new site?
We've discussed everything, so that was one of them. I'll be honest with you, we looked at that as well, and it's still on the table. We're still, you know, we talk about, I want to categorize what we're doing. we're gonna pick an alternative, whether it be built in place, on the same site or somewhere else. But then within that, we have to sit down with Diane and her staff and you all to come up with a plan that works most effectively. So there could be some possibility of some, I don't want to say split operation, but what you're referring to. I mean, there should be some form of what you just asked.
What about the tunnels and their capacity and their quality? The tunnels themselves.
What good is more gates if the expresses can't get to them if they're stuck in one lane?
So the question when it came to the two terminals, the current terminal is at or beyond its useful life. So if we did with the split operations, it would have to be two new facilities. So when it comes to the tunnels, there's a lot of things that we're doing in that regard. So the gentleman brought up the idea of technology. So we do think that technology is going to be part of the solution in that area. So just to give you a small idea of one of the things we're doing, very focused on the XBL. The express bus lane today is the most productive lane in the entire country. Right? We move close to 70,000 people in the morning between 6 and 10 a.m. One of the things we're doing right now, and again in partnership with New Jersey Transit, is we're working with some vendors to see if using connected technology, like technology that exists today for cars, to keep cars within lanes and that they talk to each other, so you can narrow the separation between vehicles and maybe travel at a little higher speed and keep inside your lane. That would give us more productivity in that lane, which means I can increase the productivity in that one lane. So if you can think about, if you can think about that and expanding that, but then if you take it, so that's something we're actually actively doing now. At the end of the month, I'm going to get proposals from 2 different vendors in using that technology in already what's the most predictive lane. Now that's not going to come today or tomorrow, but then if you take that, that's just one idea. Because now in the XBO, you get some glare or something happens, and it's, you get gaps in that lane and it's inefficient. So we needed to improve the efficiency of all of those lanes. But then if you take a look at, we call it the teardrop, the Route 3, Turnpike North and Turnpike South will merge. Imagine if you take that technology, it's called drive-by-wire, is one of the technologies, and it helps those buses you're managing how that merge happens. But it doesn't only happen there. It also happens when you come through the tunnel and how you're moving up the ramp system and how those buses are allocated in terms of where they come to the gate. So part of the solution, even for when we open up, is the whole efficiency of that South 2. We get more vehicles through now per hour just by changing how we operate in that lane. So some of the things we're doing now is trying, different things to see what we can learn today that are going to help us make the new terminal more efficient and more effective, but also the operations with it. Those operations are joined as a hit. They go hand in hand. So it's only the partial answer.
Why is there no express bus lane in
Wow, good question. So the express bus lane actually gets you to jump the queue.
Excuse me, but there are seats out here for those who are standing down.
So it actually lets you jump the queue. It helps you jump the queue of 1495, right? So in the afternoon, really the westbound, you're actually kind of already jumping the queue because you're coming through the bus, and you're not on the city grid. You're actually coming right down that lane and you're coming through. And we do a lot in the afternoon to expedite buses. So for one, if there's a problem in the afternoon, we do all kinds of things. For one, the buses from the bus terminal can access both the north lane and the center tunnel, right? So they're coming from the third and the fourth lane. So they can access both the north and the center tunnel. Depending on what's going on, we will dedicate one of the lanes in the north too to just bus terminal buses. We can also do that in the center tunnel to just buses. We actually have a contraflow lane, so a reverse lane, that we have on, we call it Dyer North, on one of the streets that connects like 42nd Street to Dyer Plaza. I know these are technical terms, but we actually run a contraflow lane there, which enables buses that are exiting the lower level of the bus terminal to kind of jump the queue, to access the center tunnel directly without going on the city streets, to kind of jump the queue. It also enables buses that are exiting from the third and fourth floor to have a choice to go down ramp 99 into the north, or to come down a different set of ramps and access the center tunnel. And at all times, the Lincoln Tunnel operation is communicating with the bus terminal operations. I mean, I was there today listening to the radios, and at all times they're communicating what's going on, and they're favoring buses. So why are we favoring buses? Because that's where we're moving the most people, right? So we're favoring buses, that's where we're moving the most people. And westbound, if you were to dedicate a lane westbound, on 495, you would need to, at some point, separate that lane to exit onto Route 3, Turnpike North and Turnpike. It's not that far a distance, so if you did do it, they would have to cut over all those lanes, say, to get to Route 3. How would you do that safely, right? So the idea is, what can we do to make the westbound move, keep the westbound moving? And I'll have to say, over the last couple of years, with great cooperation with the Turnpike Authority and with New Jersey DOT, we've implemented several enhancements. We don't talk about them, but things like we're now using the extra lane that gets you to the Turnpike heading southbound. They had built a ramp, it's now striped, and cars and buses can use it, but that gets those cars and buses tuned for that southbound turnpike, and it frees them, so the cars heading towards Route 3 and Turnpike North are no longer stuck in those queues on those days that would have been an issue. So there's other work that's happening behind the scenes, and this is all a result of folks focusing on those heavily traveled corridors.
Okay.
I think there's one.
Just a quick question.
I'm sorry, there's one more question. Yeah. Hi.
Statements. Why can't we get a second XPO? Because if 84% of the traffic, this is a fact, goes in one lane, 84%, 16% of the cars, of the other traffic, it's 3 lanes. Why can't we have more redundancy when the bus breaks down?
Let me say that a Twitter follower, that is the most commonly asked question.
And one the senator has asked me before, right? In her office a couple of weeks ago. All right, so it is something we've studied, right? And we'll continue to do that. And so here's one, there's reasons, but here's one that's I can explain. So in the morning, we dedicate the the center tunnel at around 7:15 to the XBO, right? Yeah, I drive.
Explain what the XBO is.
So the express bus lane, and I know it because I'm sorry, at 7 o'clock. Sorry, at 7 o'clock, and I know because I try to come through before 7, so I can get in that extra lane because it saves me a couple minutes, right? Sometimes I don't make it, sometimes I do. At 7 o'clock. It used to be 7:15, but we moved up to 7 o'clock to provide extra movement through that XBO, right? For the XBO. But before we chose that time, we had tried different times, right? And at one time we had it, I would say, maybe around 6:40, right? And when we had it that early, right, we looked at all the cameras, because we get to look at all the cameras before next time. When we had it early like that, it ended up congesting all of the local traffic, we said all the rest of the traffic, but it backed it all up, so much so that the buses couldn't make it through the toll plazas to get into the XPL. So it's just one way of looking at it. So if we did something like dedicate another eastbound lane, one of the issues could be that you would have difficulty getting the buses to even get to the XPL because they'd be stuck behind, your regular traffic. Now, listen, every problem has a solution, right? And it's something we have to continue to look at. But it's just something that when we were trying to pick where's the sweet spot, where do you do it? And we were looking at different times. It was one of the outcomes where when we were picking the time, it ended up being 7 o'clock because that was the sweet spot after some trial and error. I think we want to let transit, and then we'll be hanging around so you can ask us questions.
One last thing, I just wanted to reinforce the books available. Michael, Donovan, raise your hand, and some flash drives, and if you would like us to send you one, we'd be happy to. You can take some if they're available tonight. And I'd just like to thank you all for the time, and say that thank you for letting us be on such an historic project. It's really very special to us.
Thank you very much. Really, the Port Authority role here is the building, the designing, the funding, and the building of the new bus terminal. And I know it seems like a long time, but as I said, when we started out, it wasn't even mentioned in the capital plan of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. So with the current leadership and the prior leadership, Chairman John Deckman and the current leader, New Jersey-based, Kevin O'Toole, we really made great strides here. And Diane told you about some of the improvements they tried to make to the current bus terminal. I think people recognize the restrooms are better. I described it as the $90 million they found in the couch. And there was a pot of money here, and I think that they have been spending it appropriately to make this very old, overcapacity, overused building as best they can today. So I think you've done a good job on that. So thank you very much. And of course, the overall is New Jersey Transit. New Jersey Transit is the main renter of the bus terminal. And let me point out a side thing. Because there is no parking for buses on the New York side, what happens now is the buses come in during rush hour, deliver all those New Jersey people who are working in New York and paying taxes to the state of New York. Then they go back empty to New Jersey because there's no place to park. And then they come back in empty in the afternoon rush to take everybody back to New Jersey. So with this new design and the overall plan, that will be held to a minimum, which will save money, obviously, and especially save our environment. So I just wanted you to know that there are ancillary issues that are being considered. But the main user of, well, excuse me, but I do see my colleague, Assemblywoman Johnson, is here. And I know Assemblywoman Valerie Huddle was here. I don't know if she's still back there. And the mayor of Tenafly, Peter Rustin, council member Max Bash from Tenafly. I don't know if there are any other elected officials here, and I know there's somebody from representing Congressman Pasquarel's office, so thank you for being here. What did I miss? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you and welcome. So thank you for being here. So you can have seats, you can hide wherever you want. who run the trains through the tunnels, the tunnel that needs to be rehabbed and rebuilt. And they are the main users of the bus terminal. So we have Michael Kilcoyne, who is the general manager of bus operations, Stuart Mader, who is the new customer advocate and chief customer experience officer, which was a position that was required under the New Jersey Transit Reform Bill that was passed by the legislature and signed into law by the governor. It requires New Jersey Transit to hold some of their board meetings in the evening, not just in the morning when it's not very commuter friendly, and require this position that Stuart Mader is lucky or unlucky enough to assume now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Mike Kilcoyne. I'm the General Manager of Bus Operations. I have been for the last several years. I'm here tonight with Bus Operations Leadership and Leadership from New Jersey Transit. We're primarily here to listen to your concerns and to get some of your experiences so that we can make adjustments as we typically do. And was a result of our presence here in 2014 at the first forum, where we made some pretty systemic changes in partnership with the Port Authority to improve the evening commute. Our evening commute percentage of on-time performance went from somewhere in the 60s and 70 percentile to last night we ran a 92.8% on-time performance out of the Port Authority bus terminal. So the things that you think initially are impossible to achieve, through cooperation with the Port Authority bus terminal and everybody doing their part, this system can work. But the system can only work to a certain point. And that is, right now, the Port Authority bus terminal is beyond its capacity. New Jersey Transit operates over 70% of the service out of the Port Authority bus terminal. I'm happy to point out that the Regional Vice President of Coach USA is here, Scott Springle. He is the second largest carrier on Coach USA that operates out of the Port Authority bus terminal. And the cooperation to make this work for the afternoon peak, which is the primary challenge, takes all of us working together. So the new Port Authority bus terminal design team from the Port Authority bus terminal was kind enough to invite New Jersey Transit into their development sessions. And I have to say that of the original concepts that began from managing a building full of queuing passengers and information and signage and the things that deal with the passenger experience, they really took probably 90% of the suggestions that from an operating perspective and the things that are important to move buses efficiently and to increase the throughput through the terminals, from the design of the platforms to the width of the lanes to the number of lanes, and the fact that in order to really make a bus terminal on the New York side of the tunnel work well, is to build a staging and parking facility at the same time with direct ramp systems to the Port Authority bus terminal so that we're not affected by street traffic and we don't affect street traffic. So it has really been an excellent collaborative experience with the Port Authority design team. And we are really looking forward to being able to operate in a building that can handle one more bus. Because right now, we are in a condition where any bus we try and add in the morning, we need to try and put in the Port Authority at night to bring it back home. So the bus routes through Bergen County are the highest ridden bus routes in the state of New Jersey. The 166 line, for instance, alone carries 340,000 people a month. So just to give you an idea of the volumes on one single line that operates through this area, you can imagine trying to manage that back and forth AM and PM experience is very, very difficult. So just this last there are 600 more passengers that are riding the Bergen County system from this day last year. That's 12 more busloads of people in each direction. that are operating from this area. So now, if you experience crowding on the gates in the afternoon, we're running at 92% on-time performance, which means every single bus we can push through those platforms, we're pushing through. And we're on time 92% of the time. Our most recent experience is there are 600 more people trying to board those buses in the same time frame. So you'll start to see some of those lines begin to grow, and your natural inclination is to say, Transit's just screwing us up again. They're not showing up on the platforms. The fact of the matter is there are 600 more people just on those couple of platforms. Our team in the Port Authority Bus Terminal, our Director of Terminal Operations, Alicia, is here tonight, do phenomenal work. Our starters that are on the platforms change services. Diane mentioned how we reallocated the platforms so that carriers had their own sections of building. The reason for that is when your bus is missing and all of the drivers from that garage come to the same area of the terminal, our flexibility increases tremendously. So a driver who's supposed to leave at 5:30 in the afternoon and is running 15 or 20 minutes late, somebody else pulled that 5:30 trip, you just didn't know it. And they're from the same garage, so they know the routes in that area. And then that operator is put on another trip. And it affects our employees, it affects a bus driver who was scheduled to be home at 7:30 and now can't get home until 8:30, but that's what we signed up for. There's a line of passengers, they understand it. Our union has supported our efforts over the last couple of years to improve our overall performance. So let me talk a little bit about what New Jersey Transit bus operations have been up to for the last 18 months to 2 years. Through our cooperation with the Port Authority and our unions here at New Jersey Transit, our union president from our Oradell garage is here tonight. We entered into agreements with our unions to assist us to train a record number of operators in a short period of time. So in 18 months, we have trained more than twice the number of operators we would train in that period of time. And in order to do that, we got our most senior operators, our safest operators, who would normally become instructors at some point anyway, and we trained them to be instructors. And they assisted us in onboarding hundreds and hundreds of operators to try and overcome our staffing shortages. And I have to say that there were 350 non-commercial driver's license folks that we got commercial driver's licenses for and added them to the system. There is an industry shortage of commercial drivers who possess commercial driver's licenses. A lot of that has to do with the advent of at-home deliveries. Amazon and UPS has just grown exponentially because people are getting deliveries at home. They all require CDL holders, people who have commercial driver's licenses that drive those delivery vehicles. So the competition for people to work is fierce. And, we've been working hard over the last 18 months to overcome our staffing shortages. We've renegotiated our union contracts because they were up. And starting rates for our bus operators are now $20.72 an hour, which has really assisted us in onboarding operators. So we are very close to fully staffed. We are carrying significantly more people than we were able to carry even 2 years ago. So we've certainly come a long way. One of the other issues that we're focused on is it's not just the Port Authority bus terminal that's at capacity, it's New Jersey Transit's bus facilities as well. Every one of our bus facilities is completely full of buses. We cannot fit any more buses in the 16 bus garages that New Jersey Transit has across the state. So in order for us to expand our service, we need another northern bus garage. That bus garage in the north needs to be located in proximity to Bergen County. And there's not a whole lot of people in this room that want a bus garage in their backyard. So difficult to find, difficult to procure. We're working hard at it. In the meantime, we're replacing 40-foot buses that have 49 seats with 45-foot buses that have 57 seats. This has enabled us to increase capacity somewhat, but it's also created some challenges in the Port Authority bus terminal, which was built for 96-inch wide buses, not 108 inches wide. 35-foot buses back in 1950, not 45-foot buses. These platforms and the way you back off of gates and things of that nature is very, very tight now. But we're doing a terrific job in the Port Authority. When you go through there in the bus, these buses and their mirrors are this close together, and we're doing phenomenal work because of our training and our bus operators. So we're working on a new northern bus garage. We're working on larger buses. We have 290 40-foot buses right now that are in garages that cannot accommodate 45-foot buses. Their pits aren't long enough. The turning radiuses in the garages are insufficient. So we have 290 40-foot buses. We're working on procuring a new garage so that we can replace them with 45-foot buses and add buses to the system. But again, every bus we add in the morning, we need to add to the Port Authority at night. We cannot add any more buses during the peak. New Jersey Transit alone operates over 1,200 buses from the Port Authority bus terminal between 4 o'clock and 7 p.m. That is a lot of equipment. And now, because of our efforts in combination with the Port Authority, most of the delays at this point are event-driven. There's a breakdown in the tunnel, disabled vehicle, an accident. I think there were 5 or 6 events tonight that caused some significant delays coming out of the Port Authority. A motorcycle broke down in the center too. There was an accident on the westbound 495. There was another one on the eastbound. There were a couple of disabled buses, not just New Jersey Transit, there were a few others. So anytime there is a delay, now at least we can point to what caused it as event-driven, and which has enabled us to really focus on those lines that have structural defects in their running time. So last year, we did a complete overhaul of the 166 line for the weekends and for the off-peak and at night, because that hadn't been redone in many, many years, and we were able to put that system back on time. Our technology has enabled us to see where buses are, when they're there, how many people are on board, where everyone's boarding, and it's really enabled us to dive down into the details and improve running time down to the bus stop level. So time, point, schedule, and adherence has improved significantly for the experience at the bus stop level. There are a tremendous amount of buses that operate through this area. On Teaneck Road alone, there are over 110 buses that operate down Teaneck Road during the morning peak. That's a bus every 70 seconds. Good problem to have, I suppose, is bunching. But with 70 buses, a bus every 70 seconds, one traffic light is going to cause 2 buses to run together. Our loads are significant. These buses are running 44 passengers per bus during the peak hours in the morning. Everything that we have with wheels is rolling. We don't have buses sitting in the garage that we just don't want to give you. The fact of the matter is that everything we have is out there carrying passengers, and they're full. We are a very constrained system, but with help from our legislature, we are starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. Some of the funding and some of the ability to improve the system, we're starting to realize just from onboarding operators with the numbers that we've onboarded them and renegotiating our contracts and getting out from under some of that lack of funding that we've experienced, that you've experienced over the last 10 years, has really helped us start to see the light at the end of this tunnel. Just the fact that we're fully staffed is a game changer for everybody. So we're not missing trips in the morning any longer. And pretty soon we'll be able to put extra buses in those places that have spot overcrowding. The issue is getting you back home at night. So just remember that anything that you're experiencing in the morning and some of the extra crowds you're seeing at night, there's just simply more people riding at the Port Authority bus terminal. So I think that's what I have. You have some questions?
Before we go to the audience, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. You talked about 10 buses, I guess, down Teaneck Road alone. Teaneck is doing a fair amount of development, multi-family apartments. So when this development goes up, do they reach out to talk to NJ Transit that says we're bringing 300 150 new renters in the building, might be commuting into New York.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes not. And in many cases, there are some, master plan developments that aren't necessarily tight, where there'll be an apartment building that goes up to a few hundred people with a developer's advertising New Jersey Transit service, but New Jersey Transit really isn't necessarily aware that it's coming, nor does New Jersey Transit get any value capture from that development. So while they're advertising New Jersey Transit service, there's no money coming to New Jersey Transit or assets or anything for us to be able to add service to that system, for instance. So if one of your communities puts up 1,000 units, New Jersey Transit doesn't receive any additional assistance to add what would be 50 buses or 20 buses to 1,000 customers. We would need 20 buses to carry those folks, and we don't have them.
So a little message then in your own communities, when development is being planned, to be asking about coordination. And I have one last question, then I'm going to turn it over to you. With another constant complaint is the toilet is falling apart. It's leaking, water's coming. We've seen enough pictures of people with rain actually coming down on their heads, and the back of the bus, the cover's missing, a lot of things like that. So what is there a capital plan to call for the replacement, and how long is this going to take? And then to the audience.
So we are beginning year 4 of a 6-year replacement program for cruiser buses. So we get approximately 185 new buses a year that replaces our aging fleet. Unfortunately, the 40-foot buses I was talking about that need to be replaced, we don't want to replace with more 40-foot buses because that doesn't future-proof, the ridership issues. So we need to find a way to fund the replacement of those 40-foot buses, and those are the ones you're talking about. They are 18 years old. I don't know if probably anybody in this room is driving an 18-year-old car. They have upwards of 2 million miles on them. They are intensely expensive to maintain and to keep out there. Our maintenance staffs are working miracles to make sure that they're safe and that they're roadworthy. They get inspected by the DOT twice a year. They are absolutely roadworthy, but they're tired. And please, whenever you see something that's rattling excessively or there's a leak somewhere, please let us know. We certainly take care to try and adjust those. Our operators, please tell your operator after they drive every bus, they fill out a bus condition report. Our maintenance staff looks at those and tries to make sure that they're taken care of. So, believe me, we don't want anything out there raining on you.
A question over here.
Yes.
From your friendly assistant. It's actually one of the Senator's questions. A new destination comes up, such as the American Dream. What is the process to have a bus route to that new destination, which will require either transportation for employees or those who want to see or be a part of this new destination experience?
So we've been working with the American Dream extensively on a transportation plan to accommodate employees and visitors. And again, there are ramifications for the Port Authority bus terminal. There needs to be a New York route. So we're working with them. There are 3 local routes that come from Patterson and from Union City and other places that are population centers that can help bring people to the American Dream to work. So we are in the process of working with them on to develop a transportation plan. A lot of what we'll be doing is off-peak outside the rush hours. So American Dream opens from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., for instance. Our buses start to really become available after about 8:30 in the morning when they're done with their morning trips, and they become available to help some of that traffic going to and from the American Dream. So, during the weekends and the non-rush hours, we have more equipment.
So the plan could possibly include routes from Northeast Bergen
not day one necessarily, because, you know, we have to figure that out, but just like any mall that's here, any mall in Paramus, it didn't start with the robust service they have today. As those markets start to develop, you know, we're reviewing our ridership and our requests every day. We have a very robust website for people with comments and questions, and, you know, they inform a lot of the path that we travel, because we're here to serve the customers, and it's their ideas that we tend to follow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
First of all, I think everybody in the room knows Senator Weinberg, and debt of gratitude, because I don't think we'd be here, I don't think we'd be anybody here with a long time.
Keep going for another 10 years.
I have two thoughts that I want to throw at you. First of all, Northeast Bergen County, we're so close to the George Washington Bridge. We have a new or improved terminal there. We can't get there from here. The amount of buses that go across the George Washington Bridge seems to shrink every year. When I inquire, I'm told to talk to South River Tours or Coach USA. I think there's a transit that we really need to talk to about that. And we need to get more service across that bridge. And Hannaford, for example, is 10 minutes from the George Washington Bridge, and on a normal day, probably 40 minutes to the tunnel. And I got all my commuters going into the tunnel, and your terminal there is over capacity. Are there any thoughts, are there any studies about trying to move some of those commuters to the George Washington Bridge bus terminal where they can jump on the A train, which in my younger days, this was the best subway in the city. So, any chance that you look at that? And is there any thought about trying to get more people into the George Washington Bridge bus terminal?
The ability to get more people to use the George Washington Bridge terminal would solve a number of problems. The fact of the matter is that there's just not as much of a demand to go to the George Washington Bridge. I guess there's not a lot of people who consider jumping on the A train as an easy thing. It's probably a 20-minute commute down to Midtown. By and large, you know, people's destination and preference is the Lincoln Tunnel. So I would say to you that that is certainly something that we want to have happen.
Well, I tell you that our commuters don't feel that that's much of an option. The service is so terrible on the lines that go into the George Washington Bridge, and those lines have been cut back. And it's not, you can't do reverse overnight, but I think that that's an area that needs significant improvement.
I agree. 186 line has seen some improved ridership. So it's certainly something that we need to see for the future. We're focused on stabilizing the lines that we have with our increased manpower. I want to make sure that, you know, we are carrying the passengers on the lines that they're riding now. That's really our first goal, is to stabilize where we are before we start to explore the markets.
Senator Weinberg just brought up the development that's happening here in Teaneck. There's, as far as you know, further development plan. Everything is at capacity, both where the buses start, the tunnel, the Lincoln, the Port Authority in the town. I ride the 167. I ride the T. And in the morning, it can be very frustrating to see the X buses go by with empty seats. And, you know, especially when it's pouring, cold, freezing, and really hot, it's extremely frustrating to see empty seats that, you know, we all subsidize through both our taxes and my ticket that I buy every month to go in empty. Since we can't add any buses, it seems crazy to me to let empty buses on both the X's and the 165 line. It also passes through Teaneck after it gets off Route 4 and goes down to get onto 95. It just doesn't make sense to send those seats in empty. I just wanted to put that out. And I also wanted to ask, in addition to reconsidering how that line runs, X and T, to maybe fill the X buses before they begin their express routes. NJ Transit, what's the website we should use, or if there's an email address we should use?
So if you go to our website, njtransit.com, there's a comment link that you can give us feedback on your experience or any individual issues that you're having on any given day, which generally comments like you just made that we can incorporate into our overall review of our service. So the 177 line, I'll address that first, is running in the mid-40s per bus. They're not empty. We, a number of years ago, began to stop that bus along more stops, and the outcry of the customers that were on the bus, because there aren't very many seats on those buses, caused us to evaluate the running time that you save on an express, because don't forget, as you stop that bus more, you can use it less throughout the morning. So our ability to add additional buses in a cycle is incumbent a lot on its ability to reach its destination, then head back and start a new trip again. So you don't want to take every single bus and just keep running it and stopping it until it fills, because ultimately you'll have less buses on the route. So there are sections of our service where people will say, well, why doesn't a bus that's empty and starting at the end of its line just stop and pick me up? It's going there anyway. Well, because if you do that, you're going to add 15 or 20 minutes to the running time on that trip, and you'll ultimately have fewer buses running. I won't have 115 buses out here. I'll have 90 or so, because everything is taking longer to get to the New York Port Authority. So there are a number of factors that we consider when we're determining express services versus local services. Some of what we've done with the 177 is try and make sure that there's a 167 when that goes express that continues sort of that train down the road. There are times when there are disruptions, inclement weather, or there's an XDL problem or something like that, and we know there's going to be delays. We'll open the door on 177s, and the extra 4 or 5 seats will fill and even offer standing. So there are occasions that we do that, but as a general rule, we're just getting more trips out of them if we handle the delivery.
I understand that that's your general rule, but I just want to share that it's extremely frustrating. I don't have the time to do a survey of buses, as they go by, that I can see the record seats, but I see them, and I understand the delay in the trip of a particular bus to fill a little bit farther beyond, but it's also, it's our time too that's being wasted by waiting for a seat
And it's frustrating when you're a customer standing in 100-degree heat or 10-degree cold, and there are empty seats passing by you that couldn't stop and pick you up.
We do have the time, and we do have the technology with our routing systems to see exactly what those load factors are. We'll certainly take another hard look at it and see if there's something we can do, even if it's adding an additional stop. That's all we're doing, see if we'll take a look at that.
Good evening. My name is Larry Weinberg. I've been living in Bergen County since 2001. I used to ride the 167, 168, now I ride the 166 and the 178. Senator, thank you so much for the forum this evening. Thanks for everybody coming out from the Port Authority, from New Jersey Transit. I've heard things tonight that have calmed me down about certain aggravations and gripes I had about the system. I totally appreciate how you're trying to make things efficient and a very difficult situation, especially with the limited time approaching construction right now. So I'm a bus commuter. I'm a stagehand, which means I go to work all different times of the day and week. And so I've had to learn how to game the system in order to get into town at certain times. And so I have extensive experience with both lines. As far as the GW Bridge is concerned, I have to take the 178 if I have a show call at 5:30 in the afternoon, because all of the 166 buses are local after a certain time late in the morning. That takes an hour for me to get down on the local bus. Okay, so I have to take the 178. Then sometimes 178's supposed to be coming and then goes on the app. Okay? It shows up, but it causes me some agita, not knowing whether or not that bus is going to show up like it's supposed to on the schedule, and am I going to be late for work that day? Okay? Coming in the morning, my calls usually start at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting on the bus around 6:30, 6:40 in the morning at D and Forest Avenue. I'm over a mile from where the bus gets on the highway, and 8 times out of 10, I'm standing, going in, and everybody else gets on after me from that point, and maybe a little before. Okay? So just because I can't afford to live up north doesn't mean I should have to stand at 6:30. Okay? I'm not talking 8 o'clock, I'm talking 6:30 a.m. Finally, and this is something for both of you, when I understand the consolidation into the North Building after 10 o'clock at night, but you have multiple lines coming into each gate, okay, and there's no signage. The personnel, especially on the upper floor where I work, is hard to find. Let's put it that way. Hard to find and unhelpful when they are sitting at the help desk, which is right next to the right board at gate 324. Now, I understand that, your system that goes to the app is tagging the buses as they go down along the routes on the highway.
GPS.
With GPS? Okay. What would it take to put a sensor in the window in front of that bus that would activate a sign when they pull into the gate and flash the number of that particular bus in the North Building after 10 o'clock at night? What would the feasibility of that simple kind of technology with a sensor that would ping to the sign and the sign would light up 166T when that bus pulled into the gate? It would eliminate a lot of confusion up there. You've got a single line, 3 different lines boarding, and usually it's somebody in the front of the line shouting down the lines, their fellow commuters, which bus it is, and then there's the mad scramble with people pulling over and people pulling out in order to board that bus. These are a few things that are on my mind.
Let me know. So, our job is to tell you what bus is on the gate, not yours.
Okay.
I saw our director of operations in the back taking notes. Should be there, and the person who's sitting in the customer service booth should be the one getting up off of her stool or his stool and coming out and telling you what we're there if there's any confusion at all. Some of the issues that we have related to the GPS and the ability to post signage at the Port Authority bus terminal is when you enter the Port Authority bus terminal, you're no longer visible to the GPS. Everything looks straight down, and part of our problem with the Port Authority during the rush hour and the ability for you to use your app during the rush hour is it's multi-level. Not only can't you see in the building, but there's one bus which is on top of another bus on the ramps, and it's just, we haven't, or our vendor, other devices, hasn't been able to develop sort of a platform for them to be able to disseminate what is where within the building. It's the building, it's made in 1950 and just isn't built for that. So we don't, for a number of reasons, we don't activate the app during the rush hour because there are so many changes to the buses that do that.
That moves well.
Yeah, so to your comment at 10 o'clock at night, standing on the platform, and there's an employee standing there, there shouldn't be a passenger required to yell out to the rest of the passengers anyway.
I agree 100%. I just thought that in the absence of that effort, that some sort of ping to the sign would be helpful.
I agree.
Take it out of people's hands.
We'll take it the old-fashioned way, and we'll put somebody there.
Maybe a little megaphone and a little love
It's
go a
worked all
long
this
way
time.
between 10 and midnight and North Building. Trust me.
Yeah, no, we will focus.
Hi.
Under the microphone.
Right here. Hi.
Oh, hi.
Hi. So I represent the 3rd Ward of Englewood, which is the part of Englewood that borders 10 Fly includes two major roads, Knickerbocker Road and Tenafly Road. And we are completely underserved by any bus service whatsoever. And thousands of people live there and are not able to access public transportation without driving to other parts of town and overloading other bus lines. What is your suggestion about serving the thousands of people who live in the Third Ward and Inglewood?
I think that's part of our mandate is to serve the entire state as best we can with the equipment that we have. But again, beginning new services isn't something that we're focused on right now. We're focused on staffing up and building our manpower and our ability to stabilize our existing system. There used to be bus service in Knickerbocker?
There used to be a bus every 20 minutes.
So there are a lot of areas of the state that had robust bus service, and the market sort of started to dry up, and then you're seeing some of that phenomenon with the 11A and some of the other services that the customers start to dwindle. Therefore, the bus service starts to dwindle a little bit because there aren't as many riders on a particular bus, so they consolidate two buses into one bus, and before you know it, because the bus service isn't as robust as it used to be, the customers aren't coming out as much as they used to, and it's just this spiral that has created that condition. So, it's certainly something that we need to remain focused on when we get the ability to expand our destinations. One of the challenges to that is if I bring you into the Port Authority bus terminal from that area, I need a loading spot to bring you back out. I mean, it is literally another destination in the Port Authority bus terminal that there is no platform for. So one of the challenges, and you all who have loaded in the Port Authority bus terminal know this, when there are multiple lines at a single loading spot, it's very, very confusing, very congested. The building isn't really built for multiple lines standing next to each other because the escalators are narrow or the boarding location is narrow. So we're really cognizant of what we're going to do to bring you into the Port Authority in the morning and be unable to get you back out tonight. The Port Authority can't put another bus in during the 3:30 to 7:30 time frame. So even to give you a bus, I know you've heard not a robust enough service to attract people and tell you to make it something people with a rising system. Like it's already happening at the George Washington Bridge. So as the ability to serve that, once we get our regular lines stabilized and we are consistently covering every single trip every day and growing those seat capacities for the demand now, we can start to look at serving other populations that need the service and are underserved now.
What about like jitney or other kinds of last mile type of service so that it could pick people up in a smaller vehicle and bring them to the central transportation center?
So we are currently reviewing the ability to partner with first mile, last mile transportation network providers, Uber, Lyft, things of that nature. There are regulatory hurdles that we need to overcome, not the least of which is any subcontractor of a state agency, all operators need to be drug and alcohol tested. And they are required to follow the federal mandates of that. Uber and Lyft don't require that. They're out, you can just have a car and sign up, you can get background checks, but you're not required to go through any of those things. We are required to have ADA accessibility to any subcontractor. So you can't pull up in a sedan. You have to literally have the ability to carry a mobility impaired or a mobility challenged individual. So while those are regulatory obstacles, it doesn't make it impossible. There are things that we need to explore. There are things we need to partner with our legislators to try and overcome that because it really is, a game changer trying to serve people and not having a cruiser bus not ride through your neighborhood isn't a bad thing. So we hear you. We're certainly exploring things like that. But we're working through those challenges, so it's not as easy as it may seem like.
That's a very good question.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Paul White.
It's what?
Say it again?
Paul Wyckoff, Chief of Government Affairs. Transit. For New Jersey Transit. So, the jitney idea, about 20 years ago, there was some money from the federal government that enabled us to work with some communities like South Orange and Maplewood to establish jitneys that the municipalities ran and still run today. The money ran out, but the municipalities were able to take it over. That's the kind of partnership that we frankly need to investigate again for that first mile, last mile. So there's nothing, the more we can work with your municipalities and others around the state to effectuate that, the more efficiently the planners can design the system. So one of the other avenues that we pursue are local county services. We have a number of contract services that operate in the counties. Bergen County has a local contract that in fact Coach USA now operates. It changed hands from our previous vendor to Coach USA, who's now operating the B-Line contract, which is the Bergen Line local community contract, which is literally designed to hook up to other services that New Jersey Transit provides so that you have connectivity. We have a service that runs down by Metro Park train station. That's a circulator through the town to enable people to get to the train. So, we can certainly explore those avenues. There are a number of them. The jitney is one way to do that. Yes, I need to go. I need to follow the microphone.
There's lots of hands up.
Yeah, so I'm trying to run with the microphone.
Let's try to keep it down to the question.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is George Friedman Jimenez. I live in Teaneck, and I've been riding 167Q for 28 years to the Port Authority. And I want to raise the issue of buses running early. Periodically, every couple of years, I complain, I call up, and the problem gets addressed a little bit. But buses can run between 1 and 5 minutes early, and it's really very annoying, much more than you would think. The bus comes early, then you wind up waiting 20 minutes, a half hour, sometimes an hour for the next bus. And this problem has gotten worse recently. Today it was 3 minutes early. Yesterday it was 5 minutes early. You can say come out to the bus stop 5 minutes early, and if you do the math, that's 1,200 minutes a year, 2.5 work days a year of waiting there earlier for the bus. So now with the GPS, it seems to me that you have the technology to audit what time the bus arrives at each stop and to actually communicate to the individual drivers that they are running hot, running too early at a particular route. And I've gotten into, just mentioning nicely to the driver you're 3 minutes early, they get very upset sometimes. And I think this is a systemic problem that you have the technology and the power to solve. And I'd like to see the GPS being used in that way.
So the reason the driver gets upset is because they get in a lot of trouble for doing that. And our union president is sitting here nodding her head. Because the rule of thumb in the transportation industry is there's 100 reasons to be late. There's not a single one to be early. They know exactly what time they're supposed to leave. They have a piece of paper in their hand that tells them that. They're required to carry a watch. Not a cell phone, an actual watch. And they are required to leave when they're supposed to. We have technology now that can take what you said, and I can literally replay what that bus did and when it did it. I can watch it on a map and the exact times that it leaves. So trust me, when you notify us that that bus left early, the driver's upset because he's speaking to the supervisor with the union president present and explaining what happened. I'm not saying that the driver is necessarily going to get suspended or anything. Depends on how many times he does it, I suppose. But the fact of the matter is that's unacceptable. Everybody in the system knows it. And if you encounter a bus that's leaving early, let us know. And we will address it. That's why it gets addressed.
I just want to make the observation that this is no better now than it was 20 years ago. And you do have more technology now.
We do. Not everybody follows the rules. This year, 20 years ago, people tend to break a rule, or maybe distracted and didn't mean to leave early. There's a whole host of reasons why that may happen. You know what they are. I mean, it happens to many people. And if someone doesn't normally do that, they'll be reminded, don't do that. So yes, we have technology that can show exactly what happened, but the technology isn't to the point where if the bus starts to pull out, something in the bus alerts the driver, hey, not yet. We're not quite there.
This gentleman.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Howie Seidel. I'm the chair of the bus transportation.
I'm sorry.
My name is Howie Seidel.
It has a mic. She has it back there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right, well, you can leave, and then we'll get the mic over to you.
Okay, I have a quick question. Can't hear a thing.
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry. Good evening. We used to have the 165 stop by to pick up some people. And I know about 2 or 3 years ago it stopped doing that. I mean, is there any way we can have the 165 back so that, many of us don't have to wait for the next 167 bus? Because as many people have raised, it takes forever. Sometimes you wait 15, 20 minutes without having a bus. Or when they come, you literally have no seats. And I know about 5, 6 years ago when we used to have the 165, it made a tremendous difference, picking up people in the morning.
Where are you talking about?
I'm talking about the Grayson Place
On Teaneck Road.
Oh, just went out.
Between Dearborn and
So again, that's another example of the express pattern on a particular line. We're operating buses based on load factors and the number of passengers that are on the bus. So if the 165 used to stop there with seats, there are probably fewer 165 expresses and more 167s to accommodate that because they're full. And to stop and offer standing all the way down the line makes it uncomfortable for everybody. But we'll certainly take a look at what you're talking about. But I think that's another example of a 177 adding stops after Route 4. So we're going to take a look at those loads and see how many empty seats we're talking about. Our records indicate that there's 44 passengers per bus on those express buses, and there are 288 more people are riding those buses this year than there were last year. So it's increased. So, yes.
Okay, my name is Howard Seidel. I'm the chair of the Tenafly Transportation Committee. I just wanted to put, like the mayor had mentioned before, about the lack of service of the George Washington Bridge. And if you have some of your planners maybe give out surveys on the 166 to see what kind of ridership they could get based on that. Because Coach USA, they abandoned people on Tenafly Road and Knickerbocker Road that were going to the George Washington Bridge, left us high and dry. Senator Weinberg was gracious enough to help us get Saddle River tours, but they're only running 2 buses a rush hour. It really does nothing. Like you said, you need the service. In terms of the service, I know when you guys have a big problem, also the Port Authority's done such a great job rehabbing the George Washington Bridge terminal that really is a great place to go now. But when you have big incidents down by the Lincoln Tunnel or the Port Authority, I'll just agree. When you have big incidents down by the Lincoln Tunnel or on the New York side or on 495, I know you guys tend to run the buses to Secaucus to get on the train or down at the ferry. But in this area of Bergen County, it would make more sense to consider diverting those to the George Washington Bridge. Because by the time they get down towards the Hudson County corridor there, they're stuck in gridlock. So I would just like to see you guys possibly implement that as a recovery system when you do have a disaster like that.
So we just spoke about a survey within the last month or so to explore the opportunity to increase the amount of service to the George Washington Bridge terminal. That's coming. That's coming. We just need to be able to identify the market for something like that, because anything we send to the George Washington Bridge, we have to pull out of the Port Authority bus terminal. We have more buses we can add to that service. So we really have to be careful to do something like that. To talk a little bit about using the George Washington Bridge terminal as an alternate during a disruption. Once we go to the George Washington Bridge Terminal, we're there for the rest of the day. Because there's no way to communicate to people who are already heading up to the George Washington Bridge to get out of town that, okay, everything's okay now in the Lincoln Tunnel, and all the buses we were sending up there to carry people now, it's very, very difficult to recover from that, that alternative, which is why Sea Caucus and the trains is such a much more simple diversion, because you can easily and quickly recover from that. Because you're just going back to the XBL, or you're just going back to the Port Authority. It's literally en route. So, and it's getting you within a few blocks of where you were going without the need for a long subway ride. So it's really, we built the Sea Caucus Bus Plaza specifically to be able to handle a diversion and an emergency when there's a problem at the Lincoln. So if there's a problem coming outbound and people go to the train, we can meet you at Sea Caucus and take you where you were originally going to go without those buses having to worry about the Hudson River crossing. So there are some operational concerns about recovering from a diversion like the George Washington Bridge. I mean, it would have to be something significant, and you'd have to be able to capture everybody who was going to ride all those lines in the Lincoln Tunnel, the Port Authority bus terminal, to make sure they all went to the George Washington Bridge Terminal to catch that service now. So that's a very difficult emergency to manage. So we try and stick with what people know, because that there's just less confusion for folks. They typically know that you're going to go to Penn Station, get off at Sea Caucus, or the other way around, and it's better for everyone to manage it that way.
We have a lot of questions over here. Do people want to say anything for a couple of minutes?
Podium, please.
Microphone here.
Still have a speaker.
Okay. He's going to speak. Go ahead.
I'm going to use this microphone here. Hopefully it's working. I think it is. The question. Thanks for these questions. These are excellent. Lots of good insights. I'm taking a lot of notes as I'm listening. Let me just take a couple of minutes. I want to just give you a brief, quick overview of some of the things that I'm really thinking about, some of the strategy around my position and customer experience strategy at New Jersey Transit, and then happy to take more questions as well. Can you hear me okay?
A little closer to the mic. Slow down.
Let me just hold the mic. I think it's a little too far away from me. Is that better? Good? Okay. So I'm Stuart Mader. My name is Stuart Mader. I am in my 8th week as the customer advocate and chief customer experience officer at New Jersey Transit. As Senator Weinberg mentioned, my position is a result of the reform legislation that was passed earlier this year and signed by the governor earlier in the spring. And it's an important step. We're in a climate now where I think we're really seeing some important reinvestment in our transit system. You hear that in some of the things that Mike was saying about having increased, as we're having dollars come back in, we're able to do things in terms of bringing in new equipment, training more drivers. Those types of investments ultimately accrue to a better customer experience for you. The more buses we have, the larger buses we have, the better facilities we have to be able to handle those. And then, as you heard from Diane and Steve of the Port Authority, the ability to move more passengers comfortably and in a good experience in a more modern facility is really the goal of this role placements that I've made. All of these things are, and a piece of what I do every day is I'm out on the system. And so that's important because the time I spend with customers out on the system allows me to bring insights directly back in. So it's similar to, when you come out to an event like this and we're here and we're able to hear from you, my interactions with customers out in the system complement that. I'm able to talk to people, sit with somebody and talk on a train or bus while they're on their ride. And each of you who commutes, you're an expert in your own commute. And so being able to talk to you and hear your insights is incredibly valuable for us to then take that and couple it with what our bus planners, our rail planners, and others that look at this from a systemic point of view. Those two things coming together are really valuable. So one of the early things I've done in this role, I spent some time out on the rail, and one of the reasons I did that is we've got some service changes coming up starting next week for customers that live along the Montclair-Boone line primarily. We've got service changes happening into our other big destination in Manhattan, which is New York Penn Station. Amtrak is undergoing, they're starting some work to replace a major switch at Penn. This is part of the multi-year work they've been doing to renew infrastructure. Right, we'll get right back there, sure. So I've been out talking to customers on those lines. I pledged to get out and ride every single train that was impacted by that. That's now done. I fulfilled that pledge. That frees up some time for me to now spend more time with bus. So tonight I rode the 167Q out here from Port Authority to 545. I'll be going back, I live in Hoboken, so I'll be going back on the 167Q and then taking the 89. So those are more opportunities for me to get out and spend time with customers. The other thing I want to spend a second on is, we think about customer experience when you're riding transit, when you get on your light rail, your bus, paratransit, train. But for me, customer experience, I have a background besides my work in transit, also in the digital world. And I think about customer experience starting long before you get on that vehicle. It starts with, figuring out if transit can take you where you need to go, checking the schedules, checking the trip planner, fares, and that all happens with our digital platform. So I'm really pleased to tell you that today, we released the first major piece of a complete overhaul of njtransit.com. If you go to the website, you're going to see a new homepage. It is cleaner, it's fresher than what we had before. It's organized in a way that's mobile ready. We're moving toward having a single seamless experience on every screen size. So if you look at it on your computer or tablet, down to your phone, you have a consistent experience. We've also done little important details like increasing the text size, the contrast, so it's easier to read the site. That's important for everybody. And we're building it in an iterative, what we call in the tech world, agile approach, where we didn't just go out and build a whole new website and we're plumping it out there. We're building it bit by bit by bit. So the homepage is the first thing you'll see, and we're going to continue to overhaul and bring out new pieces of the site on a regular basis. The big benefit that has for you and for us is it allows us to incorporate feedback as we go. We make fewer assumptions about what to build, and we're able to take more feedback. So there's a link on the homepage to share feedback. Your input will help us build a better website. And so take a look at it, give us feedback. That's really helpful. And then the last thing I want to mention is all of these things. The time that I'm spending out on the system, overhauling the website. We put out some videos. We're going to do more of that to get messages out to you. We've done one for rail customers about Hoboken Terminal. We're working on some things for bus customers too. And then the customer advisory board is something else that I'm working on as well. Before I joined New Jersey Transit, I was very fortunate to work with the Port Authority and with PATH on something called the PATH Riders Council. I chaired that for 5 years. And as you see now, the Port Authority is growing that with the recent announcement of the new Port Authority Bus Terminal Advisory Board. And, Diane, your mention of 150 people applying, that's a wonderful validation of that model of having a group of customers who spend some committed time and some really get down into the depth on strategy and work with staff in the agency. So that's something we're working on at New Jersey Transit too. I'm taking the model that we built there and we're bringing that to New Jersey Transit, and we're going to have more information about that coming out in the coming months.
Okay, thank you very much.
Senator, can you hear me? Okay. Senator Weinberg, you mentioned about the building boom that's going on in Bergen County right now. In Teaneck, in the northeast section of town, there's going to be 600 new units coming online within this year, mostly in the northeast section of town. So you had said that sometimes municipalities reach out, sometimes they don't. If they were to reach out, who would they reach out to, and what would that process look like?
You would reach out to your local officials, who can reach out to New Jersey Transit and folks like Paul
What
Weinberg.
departments? The officials in the township, what
Would reach out
department?
to our
New
Government
Jersey
and Community
Transit?
Affairs Department.
Community Affairs?
Yep.
We don't have them.
Potentially 3,000 more people coming into the Northeast within maybe 3 years. And basically what you're saying is you can't handle it now.
Right.
And it's just, and our town council is acting like, oh, there's no problem.
Well, they should stop doing all this building, crowding us up.
I wish I had an answer to say that there's no problem.
Right. So the process, but if there is a process, they would reach out, and then what would you do? Like, how would that conversation go?
Is there a person?
Townships, municipalities reach out. Government relations is sort of the hub, the facilitator. Some of our staff is in the back,
deal with your area particularly, but this is true anywhere around the state. You get a call from the municipality, sometimes the developers reach out on their own to the real estate department. But one way or the other, we try and bring the township and the developer in to talk to the operating people and also the planners, get an idea of what's coming, the timeline, when it's going to be built, you know, the zoning board approvals and all that sort of thing, how much time is there. And then we look to see, given the constraints on our resources, how we can best align service to meet that demand. That's the process.
But we're hearing that you can't.
Pardon?
We're hearing for 167. I mean, you gave seen amount of, I mean, the 167 Teaneck Road and the Queen Anne Road and 177. Well, 177 is not really where all the development is happening in the Northeast. So it's the 167 Teaneck Road and the Queen Anne Road that's filled to capacity by the time it hits Cedar Lane. Nobody at one point can get on. They've left people standing there. And this is after rush hour. We're just going in to see a show. So I don't understand how they're gonna, you know, you're basically saying you can't accommodate.
So let me just clarify and make sure that you understand that during the rush hours, the peak periods between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m., we cannot add capacity. Okay. During those other times, in the off-peak, which is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 10 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock at night, we have buses. We can, and the Port Authority has room. So the places we've been able to add are on the shoulders of those peak periods. So we'll add services at 10 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning, because the Port Authority can handle it. We'll add services at 7:30, 8 o'clock, well actually 7:30 is now the new rush hour. So, you know, 8 o'clock at night, there's room in the Port Authority to add those services. The problem is you can't do it during the peaks. So when you talk about building 1,000 new units or 300 or 600 new units, there are challenges in the rush hour. Whether New Jersey Transit had the seats or not, the Port Authority bus terminal needs to be rebuilt in order to allow that growth to resume. I mean, everybody recognizes it. The Port Authority, which is the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, have partnered with us in recognition of the fact that we're growing very, very quickly. And that's why it's been compressed to have public comment periods so soon. This is unprecedented, the speed at which this is moving. And it's Senator Weinberg who started the avalanche. So that is happening because of the immediacy and the urgency of the situation for legal. There is a sense of urgency in your government to deal with this issue because we know it's coming. There are communities who are already there. So we are focused on it. We hear it regularly. We're concerned about it. And properties like American Dream coming into the mix and things of that nature are things that we need to try and address. And we're doing those things. It's just, we are.
I'm just going to move on to the next question. Hi.
Just before you do, excuse me, but my mind is working. First of all, just as an aside, I've already told them that this is probably going to go beyond my lifetime, but I'll be back to haunt them. And then when they see a dark shadow on the wall, it's me. So I'm putting everybody on fair notice. However, I think residents need a meeting with the Bergen County Planning Department. There is a Bergen County Planning Department because you see how all of this is interlocking. And we are at capacity in our infrastructure. There is just no more room.
And the quality, they're destroying the quality, but they're gonna, it's
So we will try to work out some kind of a meeting. I'm sorry that there is nobody from the county here.
Council, not town council here, but
planning board.
Planning board.
Or Board of Adjustment.
Well, everybody was informed.
Yeah, I know, they're not
So-
here, they don't want to hear it.
Okay, you're on next. Anymore.
So my question is, one of the most frustrating things I think is not knowing what's going on, and I'm sure that the questions that have been raised here, you've heard them all before. Is there a way that you can use and leverage all the technology that you're talking about to provide a frequently asked questions, like delineators all the time, where why don't you add a second bus lane, or all the questions that you're getting? It would be really, really helpful if there were a way for you guys as well as for us, if there were a way to understand what those questions that are being asked are and what the answers are. The second quick question is, in addition to the roles that you're playing right now.
Sorry, you need to slow down.
Sorry, is there someone on Engine Transit or Port Authority's team that's actually looking with a much further lens? So beyond just adding more buses, what about creating a bus that just takes people with bikes up Palisade Avenue so that they can ride bikes happily, or being really, really creative in the options and using not just buses, but other types of transportation.
There are entities like that throughout all of our organizations. Long-range planning is something that Clayton and his group deal with major capital projects. Those are things that we even have a long-range planning group that determine where populations are going to start to grow based on current conditions and things of that nature. So, some of, the fact that we added bike racks to the front of our buses is a perfect example of the feedback that caused those things to happen. So there is a loop to be able to do that. And every time you make comments to the New Jersey Transit website with ideas like that, it helps generate that opportunity for us to do that. So I encourage you to continue to do that. Frequently asked questions is an excellent idea. I think that's something we can team up together and gather a list of frequently asked questions to be able to answer things that we occasionally hear and that our employees hear. So yeah, that's a good idea.
The mic's back here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. I just wanted to basically touch bases on, I hear everybody talking about the New York buses, but my problem is local, the local transit in the town. It takes about 45 minutes just to get to the other side of Teaneck, from here. I think it's ridiculous. The bus drivers, their attitudes, back off the guy, what he said, I've had the police called on me because I told the bus driver to slow down because you can't pick people up doing 55 in the 15-mile zone. So I just want to know what happens in our Bergen County area other than New York City buses, and what do we do about the attitudes of the bus drivers these days, and possibly some cameras or something going on here, because it's really bad.
So, like all carriers, we're very concerned about the interaction that our employees have with the customer. We do an extensive amount of training surrounding de-escalation and just customer interface. So there are a lot of opportunities for us to improve that situation. If you have an issue, local bus, New York bus, it doesn't matter. The process is the same. Go to our website, njtransit.com, notify us of your situation, keep the receipt. That has all the information we need to track down what your issue may have been. It's got the bus number on it, it's got the bus driver's employee number on it, it's got the run and line, it's got the time you took the bus. All of those things allow us to identify who you're talking about. So local buses, for instance, we contract much of our local services out to private carriers who do them under contract for us. Coach USA just picked up that.
It's really horrible because they figure they're not driving, they don't work for New Jersey Transit, so you have to, pardon French, kiss their ass, So I mean, we're just gonna be blatant about it.
I hear you. I can tell you from experience that Coach USA doesn't tolerate that when they know about it, just like we don't. There are times where people just make the decision that they're not going to complain about a bus driver because they know about that guy, they're just not doing anything. That's not true. That's not always true. And sometimes
That's not true.
it's
not always true.
It's the third, well, because I'm about to tell you why. It may be the third or fourth time that this guy has done something like that, or this woman has done something like that, and it's time to maybe have them drive boxes around instead. And they've been retrained, and they've been disciplined, and they're just not getting it. So sometimes people violate the rules. I could tell you, I've been doing this 35 years. I've been with New Jersey Transit for 21 of them. I can tell you that 95% of our bus operators are absolutely excellent. Professionals, the best there is out there. 5% of them, that situations will be dealt with. And they take out the lion's share. The person may wind up with a little bit of time on the street, they may wind up with a lot of time, depending on what their personal situation is. So don't ever think that it's been ignored. It hasn't. It just may not be as quick as you'd like to see it resolved. And we're getting their attention. You know, the unions understand too. You know, nobody wants anybody out there damaging your reputation like that.
Is there talk about maybe putting a camera or something on the bus?
So our buses have cameras. They have cameras. They have something called the drive cam. So what happens is if you have a sudden stop, it triggers the camera. So there's a view inside the bus and a view outside the bus. It comes in 10 seconds before the trigger and 10 seconds after. There's a lot you can see in that time frame, but they don't have streaming video and all that.
Well, I think you'll catch some interesting stuff.
Hi, I'm from Leon. I know you're stamping. I understand. I'm on 166T, which I know you know Leonia shares with Palisades Park, and you're clearly aware of the increased demand due to the population increase in Palisades Park. But the situation in the morning is untenable, particularly between 6:40 and 7:05. For years, it's been standing room only in Palisades Park. So now people drive from Palisades Park to Leonia, or they take the bus from Palisades Park to Leonia. People from Leonia are going into Englewood. Broad Avenue has a lot more traffic. The buses have slowed down. And I don't know where they are. Look on the schedule. It says they come every 7 minutes or so, but they're just not coming. So we really need you to take another look at that and figure out why it's not working.
So a lot of that has to do with our insufficient staffing up until this last probably 6 months. So, I'm sorry. So a lot of that has to do with some of the understaffing that we've had over the last year probably. That has significantly improved. So the consistency of those buses coming through should be much better moving forward. That doesn't mean we don't need to take another look at it. Our head of service planning is sitting behind you, furiously writing. So we'll be taking a hard look at that. Okay.
Northwest TNEC is another area that is underserved, and I understand you can't add more capacity now. The comment I have on that is that a lot of people who live in my neighborhood drive to, for example, the TNEC Road route and park there, so it's creating a lot of traffic in town, a lot of parking issues. So if you're building all the capacity on the 167T line, and there was some way to better serve that northwest area with maybe a new route, I understand maybe in the future or something like that, just to keep that in mind. In addition, air conditioning on the buses is a problem. I remember last summer in particular, getting off a bus thinking, wow, it's so cool, nice and cool outside, looking at my phone and seeing that it was 90 degrees. To get off a bus and feel cool in 90-degree weather is concerning and problematic.
So our policy is not to run a bus with zero air conditioning.
Well, I can tell you that that is not the case.
But as I mentioned earlier, these are 18-year-old buses that, sometimes are struggling to get to the other side, and you're occasionally going to have one of those mechanical failures. We're just trying to get you home. New buses are on the way, and I wish I could tell you that I could solve that tomorrow, but I can solve it in a few years.
Okay. And then the last comment has to do with feedback. When I first started riding a bus 3 years ago, I provided some feedback through the website, and shortly thereafter I got a little comment back. Thank you very much for your feedback. And then nothing. So I understand you can't respond to each and every comment, but the feeling right now that I had was that it was falling on deaf ears, it was going in the bottomless pit. And I greatly appreciate this evening having the opportunity to speak to you and hear how many of the concerns can't necessarily be addressed. But sort of like the FAQ of having some responses to the comments that come in, more specific or more related to the comment that came in will, I think, elicit a bit more better feedback from the ridership.
So let me just do a 2-minute explanation on what happens when you complain. What happens when you fill out one of those comment sections on our website? So it goes to our customer service representatives, who are about 15 of them, that are in a cube farm, and they're taking input on all of the things that you're commenting on. Everything that you say and everything that you write has, if we can link what bus you rode, what bus line you rode, what time you rode, things of that nature, they go directly to the garage manager who operates that service. That garage manager is required to track down the issue, the operator, and to bring the operator in and have a conversation with them to find out what went on, why a particular thing happened. And it's not always a performance issue. Sometimes it's just a matter of, there's no air conditioning on the bus. What were you thinking? Did you call in and try and get a bus change? Things of that nature. So the field responds to that complaint, puts it back into customer service to make sure that you get a response. And sometimes we don't have enough information to be able to get back to you, but believe me, it's not falling on deaf ears. There is a system and a process for our field, the direct supervisors of the operators, to be aware of what's going on and to have a conversation with the operators, because I have to tell you, sometimes the operators don't even know you're angry. They don't even know that something happened or something was perceived in a particular way, and sometimes you just show somebody what happened and they're like, you know what, I didn't even realize that, okay. So, there's a lot of ways to go about this, but believe me, when you let us know something, our system is designed to make sure that everybody knows what your issue is. Thank you.
Hi. Hello? Hi. Karen Fisher. I ride the 168. What am I doing? Sorry. I'd like to shout out to, I'm local 802. I'd like to shout out to my brother at local 1 and my fellow union colleague over here for the bus riders, for the bus drivers rather. But and I agree with you, 90% of the drivers are great, but I've got to say I've seen drivers punching holes in tickets and counting money and putting it in envelopes on the road, in the snow, in the rain, in the Lincoln Tunnel. And it shouldn't be incumbent on me as a rider to be disciplining the guy and saying, please don't do that while you're driving 50 people into town with stampedes. That's a very dangerous practice. I haven't seen it in a while, and every time I see it, I report it. But I have seen it, and that's just always been a really big concern for me. Also, the communication, I think these days could be better. I know days when there's early service, I have to scroll through the website it takes several minutes to find where the advisory is. So maybe we could put that right on the front page. And also if there's some incident, which there is basically every day, if there could be a link on the front page, bus 167, this is happening, so it's 5 minutes late or whatever. And the third thing, which is a really easy fix, and I beg you to do, to please do some signage or something about cell phone conversations, and this is us. This is not the drivers, this is us. People yakking on cell phones for an hour, sitting in traffic. Somebody almost punched me once because I politely asked her to please turn it down or hang up. That should not be happening. And I know the drivers can't be policing everybody because they're driving, but if we could point to a sign and say, no cell phones, it's right there. There actually isn't one. There's no drinking, no eating, but there's no sign that says no cell phone conversation. That would help a lot of quality of life for us, I think.
So let me respond to the last thing first. Many of our passengers ride buses so that they can conduct business and talk on their cell phone and use their laptop and be able to function because they're not driving. I mean, there's literally a benefit to people who ride the system, and etiquette should be to keep your conversation low. Unfortunately, that doesn't. Bus drivers cannot be enforcers because you almost got punched. Our bus drivers get punched. right? And it's a very large concern. There was somebody who was just sentenced to 8 years in prison for beating up a pregnant bus driver a few months ago. So
They don't know about that.
and the reason that I make sure that you understand that is that bus drivers need to be very careful about customer service and customer interaction, and we do not require them to become enforcers. It's dangerous. There are dangerous people out there, and we want to make sure that we're carrying customers, they're our customers, and that we're not enforcing unenforceable rules. If I tell you to get off of your cell phone and you don't, what do I then do? I'm all by myself in the middle of the New Jersey Turnpike. So from a reality perspective, we need to make sure that there are realities that sometimes it's self-policed. Sometimes, I can't help that there's a rude person who's yelling into their cell phone, but my bus driver is certainly not responsible for stopping that for a variety of reasons. So, I urge you to be more patient or to, it's not something that I can address, unfortunately.
But even if you put a sign up, because it says no eating, but people eat.
That's just like turn your cell phone off on the plane.
People
Who
will
does
go,
it?
okay, at least it's there. At least it's there.
Okay, we'll consider that. I'm not just saying that, yes, go away.
That's what I was saying. What our code is not just so this is very basic. I want to personally thank New Jersey Transit. I am among the biggest complainers, by the way.
Hi, Larry.
This is another reason why I have informed the governor that we need a Bergen County bus rider on the board of New Jersey Transit. We are the biggest users of the bus ridership, and we are also fighting in this year's budget, the upcoming budget beginning July 1, for additional resources for NJ Transit. It is not going to solve all the problems because we need the new bus terminal. But I just want to close. I know from hearing from you, this is one of the biggest quality of life issues that faces each and every one of you. Somebody was sitting over here talking about 1,200 minutes in the course of a year. When you have to do this day in and day out, and the frustrations and the broken down equipment and the late buses are now the early buses, we hear both sides of it. I understand that this really affects the life you lead in this state every single day. And that is the reason why I and my colleagues in the legislature have taken up this battle, and we will continue it until it gets to the next step. So thank you all for being here. Particularly
Well,